welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. I am, it's the Friday show with my Friday crew, Dr. Oleka, Ed Sanders, Dominique DePrima, and of course, Alicia Cooper. Hey, y'all.
Hey, Tammi.
All right, so let's get down to this. Middle school in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which, I mean, come on now, has been forced to apologize to parents and suspend an unknown number of teachers who sent out an assignment asking students to think about the assignment from the perspective of a person who enslaved people in ancient Mesopotamia. Check out the wording in the assignment here. It says, a slave stands before you. This slave has disrespected his master by telling him, you are not my slave master. How will you punish this slave? And to add injury or insult to injury, it was assigned on the first day of Black History Month, my birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy belated.
But you know what, Tammi? I feel like there's a story like this about every month or every other month. There's a teacher somewhere in these United States who thinks it's a great idea to reenact slavery, have kids whip each other, put them in the bottom of a slave ship. I feel like teachers are getting fired. This is on the news and it's controversial every month of every year for the past 20 years. And why don't the teachers learn? Like, why is this still something that they don't get? That's what I don't understand.
And it's just what the lesson is here. What is the lesson here? What's the lesson?
The teacher needs to be fired. That's a lesson.
Yeah, there's nothing the kids are going to learn. And I'm sure it's a school with zero diversity. You know, so I mean, what and slaves, like they're not slaves, they're enslaved persons. And I mean, the language is wrong. The sentiment behind it is wrong. There's nothing these kids can learn from that except white supremacy, which I believe is the reason why they dropped it on February 1st. They knew what they were doing. It was calculated. And I hope they all get fired. Whoever was involved, they didn't run it past the parents. They probably didn't run it past the administration. And it's just ridiculous. Like Dominique said, it always slides through. And Black History Month is when they bring them out. I don't know what it is, but the crazies come out in February.
T.I., bring them out, bring them out.
I think Alicia and Dominique are making really important points here, because the question, Tammi, you asked, what are they learning? But when you ask a question about enslavement or slavery and masters, what you're talking about is power. Again, this is the dynamic that kids are learning. And when you have it in this particular context, again, you're in middle school. My first job out of college was teaching middle school. What you learn in middle school is you learn all about American history, U.S. history. The one thing that they teach you, besides Martin Luther King Jr., is about slavery. So you're looking at these kids who, in the span of 4 or 5 months, are going to learn that we endured slavery in the United States. Who was enslaved? Black Americans. Then you have this conversation about what would you do if a slave talked back to you? So now you're teaching a middle school kid the dynamics of power between people who are oppressed and people who aren't, people who have it and people who don't. And you're asking them, what would they do if someone stepped out of line and took your power? And we wonder how kids are conditioned to become supremacists. And if you're Black or a person or a kid of color, we wonder how people grow up having this condition and this mindset that they're somehow less than. It is assignments like this from teachers who are improperly trained, who do not know their craft, who need to be fired, and to make sure that they're never in front of a classroom again.
I love the way you put that in context, Dr. Oleka, because that is important. What is the curriculum that they're learning in middle school? What is their, level of development, and how is this going to impact their worldview moving forward? I think that's really important. What happens when you feel like you're losing your power and your slaves disrespect you? Storm the Capitol.
I think one of the ironic things about it was that it's Wisconsin, right? To hear it, I would have thought, okay, this is Alabama or somewhere in the deep South. But then,
really? I'm thinking Wisconsin. Yeah, makes sense to me.
Hey, look, James Baldwin. Black boy. That'll tell you where this stuff happens.
Well, true. I mean, it's not, it's not too far from Indiana, and it's very similar to a lot of Midwest states. I think about like the fights in Wisconsin, over the past few years. Scott Walker when he was governor there, and how he was trying to go at the teachers. And it'll be interesting to watch how these teachers are going to use the protections that were afforded to them by the teachers union to try to save their job. And then you also look at some of the other politics that are there. You got Ron Johnson in the U.S. Senate. Wisconsin senator is like one of Trump's biggest supporters, right? He was the one that was holding up or holding hearings that that there was misconduct in the election, that there was fraud. And so, to see this playing itself out in middle school is just this continuation of everything that you just said. It's this overall society there that is reinforcing. The fact that it was on February 1 is no surprise. You're going to run into people that do not agree with Black History Month and in fact are offended by it, and they're going to take their jabs at it. And that's what you see here.
Yeah, I want to go to some of our soulmates here. Thank you, Therese, for the birthday shout out. Therese says they need to be fired. And then our boy, J No Cap Mac says, look how many African billionaire tycoons we have, yet all we see is slavery. It's interesting. I want to toss this in real quick. How far we've come fiscally and how far we've come as far as being huge contributors to the fabric of America. Why is it that we're still seen as slaves? Why is it that we're still the underdogs of America?
Curriculum. I mean, it's curriculum and media. That's why we have to insist. The big saying right now, everyone's saying Black history is American history. I say Black history is world history, not just American history. We were the ones that started civilization. Africa's the cradle of mankind. Without us, there is no modern man. So I think this idea that Black history starts when we came to the United States is problematic. We are major contributors to world civilization. We need to insist that that be taught in school, and we need to insist that it be reported that way in the media. They say Africa's a poor country. No, Africa's not a poor country. If it was poor, why would all these other countries be stealing our resources all the time? I think this is about reframing, but actually getting the facts out and insisting upon that.
Well, and Tammi Mac, look, I mean, we've got to be honest. We sometimes play a role in this ourselves. I think there is an important understanding that we need to be valued equally under the law in every single circumstance. Yet at the same time, we cannot continue to ask a government to do more for us. This is the importance of making sure that we uplift our own community. Those African billionaires that the soulmate talked about, the Black billionaires, we have to plug that money back into our own communities to provide the resources for other people to have good quality paying jobs so that they can be entrepreneurs, so that they can get good quality education where we learn about ourselves, our history, again, beyond being enslaved, but about Nubian kingdoms, about the people who built this country from the beginning to the present day. We have to do a lot of that on our own, and we can't continue to ask a government to do it for us. I think that's part of the problem, but first and foremost, we have to be treated equally, and I think Dominique is right. It's a media and curriculum question as well.
I understand that, we have to do it on our own. We can't ask the government, but everybody else asks the government.
We fund the government.
Right.
Why wouldn't we ask
this is
we
our
are the
government too. And I think what we're saying is we want this government to treat us with parity. And so when you hear us asking for something, it's generally not something more. It's generally just, can we be treated equal? And that's where the history of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to police brutality, we have to ask the government to please stop killing us. When it comes to our teachers schooling us on enslavement, we have to ask the government to please stop teaching children that Black folks are slaves and white folks are supreme. I mean, a lot of these things are governmentally based. And so there's nowhere else to go to ask for the equality.
Well, I think that's part of the challenge because, again, I won't disagree with that. I think what you're saying is exactly right. What we deserve is the same thing that any other human being deserves, which is equality under the law, fair treatment. And when we haven't gotten it before, we deserve the resources and the opportunities to get us to parity. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But what I am saying is that we have the obligation within our own community, the same way other minority communities do, to lift one another up. We need to do that in a more coherent and clarifying way that we don't always do. I'm saying we've got a good opportunity to do that because a lot of folks do have the financial resources and the influence to do so. And I think we have an obligation. I think that we should.
Yeah, and I think that has started to happen as well. So I got to give credit to a lot of these billionaires, millionaires that our soulmate is talking about. They have taken the initiative to start creating this tent of Black excellence where we support and take care of our own. And I'm beginning to appreciate the generations that are coming after us being involved in doing that.